For over 2 centuries, or so historians tell us, it was from the St. Petersburg salons that our country's culture advanced. From those great rooms overlooking the Fontanka Canal, new cuisines, fashions, and ideas all took their first tentative steps into Russian society. But if this was so, it was largely due to the hive of activity beneath the parlour floors. For there, just a few steps below street level, were the butlers, cooks, and footmen who together ensured that when the notions of Darwin or Manet were first bandied about, all went off without a hitch. And so it was in the Metropole. Ever since its opening in 1905, the hotel's suites and restaurants had been a gathering spot for the glamorous, influential, and erudite. But the effortless elegance on display would not have existed without the services of the lower floor. Coming off the wide marble steps that descended from the lobby, one first passed the newsstand, which offered a gentleman 100 headlines, albeit now just in Russian. Next was the shop of Fatima Fedorova, the florist. A natural casualty of the times, Fatima's shelves had been emptied and her windows papered over back in 1920, turning one of the hotel's brightest spots into one of its most forlorn. But in its day, the shop had sold flowers by the acre. It had provided the towering arrangements for the lobby, the lilies for the rooms, the bouquets of roses that were tossed at the feet of the Bolshoi ballerinas, as well as the boutonnieres on the men who did the tossing. What's more, Fatima was fluent in the floral codes that had governed polite society since the age of chivalry. Not only did she know the flower that should be sent as an apology, she knew which flower to send when one has been late, when one has spoken out of turn, and when, having taken notice of the young lady at the door, one has carelessly over-trumped one's partner. In short, Fatima knew a flower's fragrance, colour, and purpose better than a bee. Well, Fatima's may have been shuttered, reflected the Count, but weren't the flower shops of Paris shuttered under the reign of Robespierre? And didn't that city now abound in blossoms? Just so. The time for flowers in the Metropole would surely come again. At the very end of the hall, one finally came to Yaroslav's barber shop, a land of optimism, precision, and political neutrality. It was the Switzerland of the hotel. If the Count had vowed to master his circumstances through practicalities, then here was a glimpse of the means, a religiously kept appointment for a weekly trim. When the Count entered the shop, Yaroslav was attending to a silver-haired customer in a light grey suit, while a heavy-set fellow in a rumpled jacket bided his time on the bench by the wall. Greeting the Count with a smile, the barber directed him to the empty chair at his side. As the Count climbed into the chair, he offered a friendly nod to the heavy-set fellow, then leaned back and let his eyes settle on that marvel of Yaroslav's shop, his cabinet. Were one to ask Larousse to define the word cabinet, the acclaimed lexicographer might reply, a piece of furniture often adorned with decorative detail in which items may be stowed away from sight. A serviceable definition, no doubt, one that would encompass everything from a kitchen cupboard in the countryside to a Chippendale in Buckingham Palace. But Yaroslav's cabinet would not fit so neatly into such a description, for having been made solely of nickel and glass, it had been designed not to hide its contents, but to reveal them to the naked eye. And rightfully so, for this cabinet could be proud of all it contained: French soaps wrapped in waxed papers, British lathers in ivory drums, Italian tonics in whimsically shaped vials, and hidden in the back, that little black bottle that Yaroslav referred to with a wink as the fountain of youth. In the mirror's reflection, the Count now let his gaze shift to where Yaroslav was working his magic on the silver-haired gentleman with 2 sets of scissors simultaneously. In Yaroslav's hands, The scissors initially recalled the entrechat of the danseur in a ballet, his legs switching back and forth in mid-air. But as the barber progressed, his hands moved with increasing speed until they leapt and kicked like a Cossack doing the hopak. Upon the execution of the final snip, it would have been perfectly appropriate for a curtain to drop, only to be raised again a moment later so that the audience could applaud as the barber took a bow. Yaroslav swung the white cape off his customer and snapped it in the air. He clicked his heels when accepting payment for a job well done, and as the gentleman exited the shop, looking younger and more distinguished than when he'd arrived, the barber approached the Count with a fresh cape. "Your Excellency, how are you?" "Splendid, Yaroslav. At my utmost." "And what is on the docket for today?" "Just a trim, my friend, just a trim."